Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. My name is Bree, and I am here with my sister girls. Our Mahogany cast has reassembled, not chatting anything Mahogany this go around. We are talking a new Netflix movie we're excited to chat about. So let's go down the line. Jazz is here. Hi, Jazz.
Hey.
Our fearless leader, Anne, is here.
Hey, everyone.
And the lovely Dory is here.
Hi.
Hey. So before we get into it, we did have some things we wanted to shout out. Jazz, can you shout those out for us real quick?
Of course. First of all, we need to give a shout out to Dara from Dear Hallmark. Definitely check her out. She dropped an exclusive with the VP of Mahogany, Alexis Carr. And guys, we cannot wait to August 26th with a new Mahogany movie dropping called Napa Ever After. Yes.
Yeah, that interview was great. Shout out to Dara. Yeah.
Definitely.
Definitely. And it's going to star a Hallmark guy that we all know, Colin Lawrence. So that's exciting for him to be in the Mahogany brand and just to have another lead role because he still doesn't have that many. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. And it's going to air on Hallmark Channel, which is also exciting, which Dara got that scoop too.
So Anne, I was confused. So you know how when we got Unthinkably Good Things, it was on both Hallmark Movies and Mysteries and Hallmark Channel. Is this one going to be on both channels at the same time, or is this one straight up Hallmark Channel?
From the article, it looks like it's just going to be on Hallmark Channel because it's going to debut like on Saturday, August 26th. It didn't say anything about Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. So I don't know if it'll air on there like a premiere for Hallmark Movies and Mysteries like the next day or like another time, but it will definitely air on the 26th on Hallmark Channel, which is great because as so many more people have access to Hallmark Channel, so it's a lot more viewers can be able to see the movie.
Yeah.
And I believe from the interview, I listened to it, which I like we all said, it was great. And Alexa did say that I believe that it's going to be on all three networks, like last August. So it needs to be done like that. It needs to be done like that more often because not a lot of people have movies and mysteries unless it's like the holiday time or something like that. But
yeah,
I'm really excited about this, August, movie.
So for all the haters out there, I'm sorry, but yes, you're gonna have to watch a Mahogany movie on the regular channel. Sorry, but we're excited. We'll be there.
Yes, we will.
No.
So we are. Was there? I feel like there was something else we wanted to shout out, but I can't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come to us.
It's gonna come to us.
Yeah. Well, we are talking The Perfect Find, which is a Netflix movie. Did anybody find the rating for the movie? I was looking for it, but I could not find it.
That's what it was. Yes. The Perfect Find is on Netflix and it is rated, I believe, TVMA. So it's definitely not regular Hallmark G or PG rating. So we just wanted to make sure you guys knew that if you check out the movie or just some of the stuff we might talk about won't be as family friendly possibly as usual. So we just wanted to let you guys know.
Yeah, I would tread lightly. I think the intimate scenes are more like the door kind of creaked open. I wouldn't say closed door, not fade to black, but I think most of anything, it's more like language. So just if you have little people around, maybe don't watch this with them.
Yeah.
So this was directed by Numa Perrier, who also directed Unprisoned with Kerry Washington, which was on Hulu. And the script was written by Tia Williams, who also wrote the book that came out back in 2016 under the same title, and Lee Davenport. So those are the writers for the book, or for the movie. I'm sorry. So before I get into all y'all's overall thoughts, like I feel like how our iPhones especially, are constantly ear hustling. So I watched this movie last weekend, and all of a sudden it's been like everywhere. Like it pops up on my Instagram Explorer page and all of that. So I did come across some thoughts that people had after watching the movies, which we'll get into because I want to ask you all your thoughts. But Just really quickly, I'll go into what it's about. So the summary from IMDb is: after a high-profile firing, Jenna's fashion career comeback hits a snag when she falls for a charming, younger coworker who happens to be her boss's son. As sparks fly, Jenna must decide if she'll risk it all on a secret romance. So some of the thoughts that popped up when this popped up on my Instagram Explorer page a couple days ago. Some people thought um, there was no chemistry. They felt like it was rushed. They didn't like the changes at the end. No character development. Some were just not a fan of the age gap romance, which we'll get into later. Some felt it was uncomfortable to watch. From people that are either currently reading the book or have already read it, it kind of seems from them like if you haven't read the book, then you just don't get it. Some couldn't vibe with Gabrielle Union playing the role of Jenna. So kind of tie it in with your overall thoughts. One of the conversations that my husband and I had was like, he personally as a viewer feels like a lot of people prefer series. And I was thinking a lot about the comments that I was seeing about this movie, and I was like, especially like the rushed part and the chemistry part, I feel like you feel chemistry when you have time to really develop things. So kind of, I want everybody to, I mean, go into your overall thoughts, but also think and like give me your response. Would this have been better as a series for you? So, Dory, give me your overall thoughts, and what do you think? Did it work as a movie? Would it have worked better for you as a series?
It I think that's a great question. It might have worked better for me as a series. Um but at the same time, like I feel like stretching it, I don't know if I would have liked it stretched out even more. I my issue was mainly with some of the storyline choices,
Okay.
and some of the, and I think that affected the pacing. Like a lot of the plot points ended up affecting the pacing, and to be honest, I would have removed some of those things and I think it would have been a better movie. And I don't know if I'd want to watch this as a series necessarily.
Okay. So, example, what is something from the plot that didn't work for you?
The pregnancy,
Oh, gosh, I know. I know.
like I
But this
just
goes
didn't
back to
think,
like, I haven't read the book. So I'm like, is that in there? Or was this something they added in there for the movie?
I feel like if you want a, Netflix rom-com, you want it under 2 hours, like you have to take some liberties with the plot. You have to.
Mhm.
Either the pregnancy, I think personally, I think either the pregnancy has to happen sooner
Oh, yeah.
or you don't have it at all. I think it might have worked if the pregnancy happened like early in the movie and that was the main conflict, that she was pregnant and they barely knew each other and they're like trying to figure it out. I feel like because it was at the end, it felt very rushed and really just thrown in there, and then there wasn't a lot of resolution. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this more, but those are my thoughts.
Mhm. What about you, Anne?
I think that Gabrielle Union and Keith Powers had chemistry. I definitely felt chemistry between them. My problem was with like the last 30 minutes of the movie, basically kind of what Dory was saying. I just felt that it was really shooed in there and just came out of left field, the whole pregnancy thing. So like I just didn't like that. That's kind of when the movie went down. For me, I just felt it was rushed, like people were saying. And I haven't read the book or anything, so I don't know what happens with that. Um, but as far as the age gap, I think that in real life, age gaps can work with like certain, people. And in in movies, I don't really mind it unless it's like they just look like so much different than each other. You could tell they're like so much older. But Gabrielle Union obviously has amazing genes and skin and everything, so she's playing 10 years younger than she actually is in this movie. Yeah, I enjoyed it until the end. That's when it kind of went awry for me.
Would it have worked for you as a series?
think so. I mean, I'm kind of a weird person. I really like series and like character development and stretching things out. But I can definitely see what Dory's saying as well. Like, would it have been? I mean, I think it would have just because it felt so rushed. It feels like a series would be better. But I don't know if I'd want to watch like 10 whole episodes of this. I'm not really sure, but yeah, so I don't know. I watch so many series, so there's a lot already out there. I
Yeah.
think they could have just done better with the movie and the ending and stuff, and it would have definitely worked out better.
Okay. Jazz?
So I'm the type of girl who will read the books before I watch the movie, which I did not in this case. I'm notorious for that. Like any type of movie from like, oh gosh, I've seen movies quite some time. But for me, that whole pregnancy thing was hella left field, y'all. I was not expecting that at all. Um, I know for me, if they, I was fine with it as a movie. If they did it as a limited series, I probably do it as a 4 episode that
Yeah,
led up
4 or
to the
5,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah, that led up to the movie, and then I'd be like, oh, I kind of give it like a little bit of the backstory, a little bit of like, kind of like going from like past to like present and leading up to the movie situation.
Ho, ho, ho! We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Like last time, like what we did, I mean, beginning, middle, and end, quick rundown. So in the beginning, when we meet Gabrielle's character, so she plays the character of Jenna, and y'all fill in any like important parts that you want to highlight. But like we meet her, and I really question anybody that has read the book. Please hit us up. I did not know, and I think it's the same to say like for you three. Like I didn't know this was a book until we were like, oh yeah, let's talk about this movie, and we were digging into it, and it was like, oh snap, it was a book. And the author Tia Williams had a pretty big book release. Like it's still talked about, called 7 Days in June, that I think came out, if not last year, the year before. It's like a beautiful, beautiful romance. So when I saw this was a book, I was like, okay. And looking at the cover, I kind of question, it came out in 2016. I wonder how much of it is like chick lit-ish almost. So when we meet Jenna, she has went through a very public breakup. She's living back at home with her parents. And her mom basically is like, honey, we love you, but you need to move out. And then we meet her best friends, Lala Anthony, and I'm blanking on the actress's name, but I love her. She plays the character of Henrietta in this show called 911. Love her on there. They go to a party, and that's where she meets the hero, Eric. They have a kiss that goes wrong. She like falls or something. It's kind of hard. Slides, kind of hard to describe. So she's jobless. She goes and she begs basically Gina Torres, who plays Darcy, to give her a job. And the vibe that you get at that meeting, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like they kind of came up through the ranks together, and maybe Gabrielle's character always kind of beat hers out for stuff. So there's like a little bit of beef there. Is that right? Were y'all catching that vibe?
Yes.
Okay.
And
I
it
would
was
love to
more
see that.
And it was more than just work. It was personal too, right? Because she brings
Mm.
up the fact that she that Jenna stole a boyfriend from her once or something.
Yeah.
So they have beef on multiple levels. And I actually liked that wrinkle. I liked that they had history, and I think it's really interesting. I mean, the way life humbles you, right? Like you are on top of the world, and then here you are a year later and you're sitting across from like your frenemy begging for
Begging
a
for a
job.
job. Yeah.
Life will humble you like that. And I thought that that was an interesting wrinkle.
Yeah. One of the comments that I did see was people were like, they did not utilize Gina Torres like they should have. Like
Hard
she
agree. I
deserved
wanted
better.
more. I wanted more. I
Yeah.
love
She was
her and I
gonna be
wanted
in it more.
more.
Yeah.
Like she was giving me the black version of Devil Wear Prada in this space, and
Mhm.
I was like, I'm here for this.
Yeah.
Well, and I
Justice for
think that's
Gina.
another like I wish that there had been more about their relationship and the history of their relationship. And that's something where putting a pregnancy in the last 30 minutes doesn't allow you to delve deeper into that story, right? Because you're trying to get to the pregnancy part.
Yeah.
So it's little things like that that kind of threw me off in this movie.
So Gina gives or Darcy gives her the job, but then there's kind of a caveat like you're going to be working with someone, another new hire. It's my son. The son walks in, and it is the gentleman that she shared this very hot but also super embarrassing that she'd rather forget kiss with the night before at this party. So that's kind of, I guess, like the introduction. The middle is a lot of them like workplace romance, close proximity, a lot of just like working together, trying to deny her feelings, but it's really obvious that like she can't do that for long. He's totally smitten with her. And then really I feel like then you look up and it's the end of the movie and like we've already discussed there's like a pregnancy twist there. Um and then it's kind of the end of the movie. So I think, but I do want to spotlight. I think the thing that I loved this so much of in this movie was kind of the homage to old black Hollywood and glamour. Like that is what I think stood out to me kind of just the most. I loved like the old shots of like the old Hollywood. I don't know what made them decide to do that. I don't know if that's in the book. But I thought that was really kind of a special aspect to it as well. Um Okay, so some of the taglines from IMDb: find love, find success, find yourself. Um, 1 to 5 movie popcorns. What's your rating for the perfect find, and why? And what do you think of those taglines? Is there one that sticks out to you the most? Are there some that you don't agree with? Anne, let's go with you.
Okay, so for the popcorns, I would say I'm gonna be real specific. 3.25 popcorns.
Very specific. Okay,
It's very specific. That 0.25 is some Keith Powers power there because I would
because
probably
he's
go with a flat
gorgeous.
3.
Yeah.
But yeah, that ending really just it kind of just blew up the whole setup, and so it kind of kiboshed it for me some. But I enjoyed, like I said, the beginning part in the middle. And then you said for the taglines.
Yeah, what do
Um,
you feel the movie was mostly about? Finding love, finding success, or finding yourself?
yeah, that's a good question. It was kind of about all three. Yeah.
You think it
I
hit
don't
all
know.
3?
I think it did kind of hit all three. Maybe not
Okay.
all like with the same amount that
Mhm.
it hit each one, but I think it did hit some on each of those, which I think are, all three things are things that everyday people are, trying to do in life. So I think that hits home for a lot of people, which I'm sure is why it resonated with people in the book, the movie, and yeah.
Mhm. What do you think, Jazzy? What's your popcorn rating? And out of the taglines, what are your thoughts? Is there one that you think the movie hit on the most, or what?
So for me, for the popcorn, I had to go with Anne. Like I had to be really specific.
If you say 3.25 too.
No, I actually would say 3.5 because
Okay.
because Keith Powers is
Oh my
now
gosh.
in the 90s Fine era.
Yeah.
Congratulations, son.
Look,
Congratulations.
that young man there, okay?
Girl,
If
it's a lot of 90s Fine we could talk about.
oh my gosh. He is not hard to look at
Girl,
all.
girl, he would have, yeah, he could have got my MySpace.
Not the MySpace top 8.
That was so funny they mentioned that.
Girl, it rolled back to like 2005. I was like, Lord, he's showing my age. But for the tagline, I will probably say no. I feel like it was all three that kind of like either like was separate, depending on which scenes they were in, or they merged together. Because she did hit rock bottom. She had to learn how to find success again, finding herself and finding love.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree.
What about you, Dory?
I think I would give it 3 popcorns. I think it did hit on all of the taglines. I kind of would have liked to see her find herself more, like separate from the love story and even from the job. Um, I thought that there was kind of a missed opportunity, like between when they break up and when she decides to tell him that she's pregnant. I would have kind of liked to see more of her growth and kind of finding out she was pregnant, figuring out what she wants to do, like kind of
Yeah.
the struggle with deciding, like, does she really want kids and does she want a family and what's that going to look like for her, whether they get together or not. Like, I think there was kind of a missed opportunity with the storytelling that I would have loved to see, that I think would have gone along with the tagline of finding yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Definitely. That's a really good point. That would have definitely added something really good.
And
Because
then
we
like
get to see it with him a little bit. Like, you get to
yeah.
see him, he moves out of his mom's apartment and you see
Yeah.
him shooting his movie and he's bringing up a Christmas tree to his house and decorating. And like, we didn't get that montage with Jenna at all.
Yes.
And she's the one who was pregnant.
I
Yes.
wanted to see her in the classroom. She was like, she took a job as a professor. I'm
Absolutely.
like, girl, that's
Absolutely.
cool. I want to see you in the moment, being a pregnant, soon to be mom, also teaching. I wanted to see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know what happened at the end of this script. What if they just decided to? I don't know what happened. It seems like somebody just dropped the ball because it just seems like in that time frame, it's just what what they did and what they didn't do is I don't know. Some weird choices were made. So yeah, I don't know. Because that would have been so good. The movie's about her, and we, like you said, we didn't even see things that she was doing in this time, and she's the one who has this life changing thing going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we literally didn't even see the moment where she finds out she's pregnant, and I would have loved to see her more with her village. Like, I loved her friends. I would have loved to see more of them, like, coming together to support her when finding out she's pregnant. I wanted more scenes with Janet Hubert, like, as her mom. I wanted all of that. And
because
I
that
don't
scene where
know.
she's on the phone with her mom and
Oh
her
my
mom just a talking, and then the doorbell rings and she just puts the phone down and goes and checks the door, and mom's still on the phone. I lost it. I was like,
Hilarious.
this is hilarious. Yes, I wanted more mother-daughter stuff. Yeah, totally agree. I absolutely, just hearing you all talk about it, I'm like, I feel like there's so much build up. Like, you really fall in love with like her community, like her friends, and they're having these like kickbacks and like hanging out and dancing in the apartments and stuff. And then like the second half really just kind of feels like a letdown because I guess this like pregnancy twist plot really takes over. And you don't really see the homegirls anymore, right? And it's like, but they are going to be her community still. So like I would have liked to have seen all that through. And that makes me really like, I really want to read the book now because I want to see.
Me too.
I just feel
Yeah.
like I really have this feeling that the book and the movie are somewhat different, even though the author is the same. because you
Yeah.
got to make it work for TV, right? You got to make it work for Netflix. So I want to see what differences there are.
I do
Um,
too, because we don't even like, we see everyone else's reaction to her pregnancy except
yeah,
hers. We
yeah,
see his mother, we see his reaction, which that scene was rough for me. And the resolution or lack of resolution about that scene was really
yeah,
tough for me.
Mhm.
um we saw their reactions, like they got to have reactions to her pregnancy, but it's her pregnancy and her body and her baby,
yeah.
and we didn't get to see her reactions or anything, and that just kind of bothered me and is still bothering me. Like the more we talk about it, I'm like, you know what else, one more thing,
To quote
like
Dory from recordings past, that was a choice.
that was a
Oh,
There
choice.
were a
That was
lot
a
of
choice.
choices. There
Yep.
were a lot of
Yep.
choices.
Yep.
So I think we all agree, like, we should have focused a little bit more on Jenna's character. I do feel like at some point this becomes a movie about Eric.
It
mm.
does. Yeah. It does.
So let's talk the age gap. So I guess she's supposed to be, is she 40 or 41 in the movie? She's like,
40.
she's 40, and I
Mhm.
think it's thrown out there, he's like 23 or something. In real life, Gabrielle Union is 50 and Keith Powers is 30. Um, I want to get y'all's thoughts on the age gap romance. For a lot of the comments that I was reading online, that people just are like, I don't like age gap romances, which to each their own. I totally get it. Um, that part didn't bother me, but I was wondering what, as far as his mom, was it, and this is another thing we didn't really get, but like, was it for her, this is my son, and like, you're my age, and we've always had this kind of beef going on, or was it the age gap for her? What did y'all think about the age gap? And then as far as like his mother, did y'all get that was the problem for her, or did it feel like it was something else? Jazzy, what did you think?
For me, it for her character wise, it was both. Um, when they had that grown woman conversation about nipping it in the butt, like no, this can't. And there's one thing, I guess, having that work relationship situation, but another is like that's my son. On top of that, like we're the same age. He's young. But I also feel like it is a double standard when it comes to age gap between when men do it versus when women do it,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like seen as when a male do it, it's okay per se, unless we're in the year of 2023 of Me Too situations. But when it's a woman doing it, she's considered like more like not saying MILF per se, but more of a cougar. Like, yeah, cougar, or like wait, like he's too young. He's want to find someone your own age, but when a male does it, it's okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
Like
like,
lives and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, one girl was like, I loved her comment though. She was like, I don't want to hear it. She's like, this is a whole grown man with a master's degree. They kept harping on that. She's like, it's fine. And I was like, you know what? I
Come
kind
on.
of get that. What did you think, Anne?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's something in real life that I could never personally do. But like, if I'm watching a movie and it's like he's a grown man, she's 40. I mean, yeah, if she was like older and that's what I mean. Like, if she was like way older, like maybe he was 30 and she was like 50 or something, then I'd be like, okay. But I think with the way the ages were and just how, beautiful and attractive these people are, that it works good. And like you said, he's a grown man. He knows what he's doing. She's a grown woman. And they like each other. And I thought, I mean, I like Gabrielle Union. I've always liked her. So I mean, I thought it worked. I mean, yeah, sometimes it can be cringy depending on the ages of the people. Like if it's a really old man and the woman's like 25, I'm like, okay, that's just cringy to me. But in this case, I think it works.
What about you, Dory?
I don't mind an age gap. And I certainly don't mind an age gap when it's an older woman and a younger man. I love to see it, like, because we are conditioned to kind of just roll with it if it's an older man and a younger woman. Like, if people looked if you look up some of the ages, like, of actors and actresses you see in rom-coms, like, you'd be shocked sometimes to see the age difference between the
Yeah.
man and the
Mhm.
woman. 10
Yeah.
years, 15 years, 20 years, and we think nothing of it. We
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
nothing of it. But
Yeah.
when it's a woman, suddenly it's a conversation. And so I'm here for this. I'm here for, I mean, I totally agree. This is a grown man, um, this and a grown woman in a consensual relationship. They met outside of the workplace. Like, I had no problem with that. As far as the reaction of Gina Torres's character, I think it was, I think she was upset, probably. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, we didn't even get to delve into that enough to know really what her issue was. I think it was probably a combination of the age gap and the fact that they were working together and the fact that they had that history together and the fact that she said, I don't want you to pursue a relationship with my son. Like, they
And she
had
catches
that
him in
conversation.
her house. And she catches him in her house.
Exactly. It's like, and it doesn't even, like, that doesn't even bring into account their history together, right? She has already felt betrayed by
Yeah.
Jenna with this former boyfriend. She has already felt some kind of way about Jenna getting all these jobs over her. So this is like one more betrayal, one more stab in the back. And I think that's probably what she was most upset about, was that she was like, we have this history together. I have never really trusted you. I gave you this shot with this job. I asked you not to do anything with my son, and here we are, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Here you go again. Hashtag.
Right. Here we go. Like, oh, and she says, she's like, you, like, she basically says, this is who you are, and you've always been like this, you know, only thinking
Mm.
about yourself. And I mean, it ain't looking good when you look at it that way, you know?
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. Rachel Hauk, the New York Times bestselling author of The Wedding Dress, presents a nostalgic coming-of-age novel. Summer of '77 was supposed to be the best summer of Summer Wilde's life, but after a teenage prank gone awry, everything changes. 20 years later, after her music career crumbles, she must face a reckoning with her past and the friends she lost to find her future. Purchase The Best Summer of Our Lives for 30% off and free shipping at bakerbookhouse.com. That's bakerbookhouse.com, or see the affiliate link in the description.
I think that, like, when you think about the conflict for Jenna, it's, you know, like we already said earlier, like when we meet her, she had so much going on, like lost her job, relationship. It was big all over the magazines or whatever. And then she meets Eric and it becomes kind of, I feel like the age thing was used, she used it as like a comedic thing. Like it was always kind of like the joke, right? And I think that as the viewer, I kind of got the sense that she was always aware of like whose son this was. And I think the part for her was like the stake. She kept talking about a future of respect, building a name for herself. And then it just gets to the point where like that chemistry, you know, the feelings that she has for this guy are undeniable and you just kind of have to go for it. But so when eventually, you know, they go for it or whatever, and then the whole pregnancy thing happens, I will say the one thing that like I was happy that they did/didn't do was, here she is, this woman over 40, right? And I hear so many women on like podcasts and movies, and like that age demographic feels so unseen. They're like, they feel almost like invisible. Like it just like people aren't looking at you. Like there's a show on Apple TV called Platonic, and the mom in that movie, her and this other mom are like dropping their kids off at school, and they're like doing this experiment where like groups of guys will walk by and they'll try to talk to them, and they just keep on walking, and they're like, yeah, nobody's paying attention to us. And so like with her getting pregnant, I liked that first and foremost, like he finds her, he's totally smitten with her. Like I don't really feel like you can deny that. Like he is always looking at her. And then with the pregnancy thing, it was like women are told like it's so hard to get pregnant in your 40s. And I know that for a while, like I was reading a lot of articles and stuff that were like, no, that's not true. It's just girls used to get pregnant at really young ages, so 40 sounded really old, but realistically it's not as difficult as you thought. I really appreciated that they didn't harp on that. I was like, most movies would be like, oh girl, you're 40, so you need to be careful, you need to watch out for this and this. It's just like she's pregnant. And I felt like that was kind of like a little like glimmer of hope. Like they just did not harp on it. But that could also be like, there's not a lot of time to harp on this. So I kind of appreciated that. Like, did that ever cross y'all's mind, or like what do you think about it? Yeah, I'm like John. I now that it's been like a week since I watched it, I'm like, oh, I gotta talk to the girls about this.
You know what? I'm glad they didn't like put that statement out there like that you're old, especially in your 40s, because we've seen Janet Jackson have a baby in her 50s.
Yeah.
Like, you know, shoot, even males are getting girls pregnant and they're like in their 70s.
Oh yes.
But,
Yes.
yeah,
What is it? Robert De Niro, I think.
yes. And I guess to say, I think from my experience, well, because my parents, they had a 30 age difference. Like even my great uncle and aunt, they had a 30 age difference. But I know because my dad, he was in his 60s when he had me, and my mom was in her 30s. They actually met on the reserve, so they actually served our country. But it just, you know, test the time of like, you know, when people have kids, you know, even though, you know, surrogates are now a thing now and stuff like that. But I'm glad that they didn't make it as a stigma of you're too old. Like women, we can do anything. We can change our careers if we wanted to. We have babies when we're ready to have babies. And yes, there are safety measures in regarding to carrying a baby. But I'm glad that they didn't make it as, I guess, in the plot of like, you shouldn't be pregnant by this young man or X, Y, and Z. I'm glad it did not go through that stereotype.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think that, you know, it's true that your fertility does change as you get older, of course. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you turn 40, you know, late 30s, early 40s, it might be harder to get pregnant. And I think they could have made that a plot point if they wanted to. I'm cool with them not making it a plot point. It might have been funny if she was like surprised that she got pregnant because
that would have been funny.
Try harder, you know, like she's like, I'm 40. How did I just like get pregnant? I had like a couple month romance with this guy and I got pregnant. Like I thought it was gonna take months, years, you know.
Issues in her last relationship, that could have been another dynamic of that. Like she couldn't get pregnant.
Yeah.
I spent 10 years with this guy and boom, I meet you at a party and I'm pregnant.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, I think that could have been interesting, but yeah, I mean, I just like the representation of a woman who's 40 and pregnant. Like, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. What do you think, Anne?
Yeah, I'm the same as Dory. Like if they would have mentioned it like just like one time or like at least made it a joke, it wouldn't have bothered me. But I'm glad like they didn't, you know, harp on it or call it a geriatric pregnancy or, you know, these things they do a lot. But yeah, I think I just would have liked to, like we said, see her reaction to it. So we could have kind of seen like her joy or her confusion or her questioning. But I thought it was just good representation to have because, you know, these days it's something, you know, that's a lot more common. So, yeah.
And I think it goes back to what we talked about a little bit ago. Like, at this point, when that all comes out, the pregnancy, it kind of, I feel like we get no real reactions from Jenna. I just feel like everything is happening to her and around her.
Yeah.
So it totally makes sense now that you think about it. It's like she just kind of finds out she's pregnant, and next thing we know, we're at the diner and she's telling him, and it's like, no, I wanted to like see her laying on the floor with her two girlfriends and crying about it or laughing about it or something.
Yeah, something would have really been good to see. Yeah, especially her with her girlfriends, like telling them or her finding out and then calling them or, something.
Mm-hmm.
So so we already kind of talked about Gina Torres. I think that the few scenes that we did get her in, I think her acting was fantastic. I personally really wish we could have got more from her, but what did you think of her character? Because I saw some comments that were like they felt like her character was a caricature. And I was like, I kind of feel that, but like she still killed it in the little bit of scenes that we got. What did you think, Dory?
I can see that, like very Devil Wears Prada, fashion boss, whatever. I think it was probably on purpose, like that's kind of an archetype almost that we have in a lot of these movies, like the high powered, fashionable, boss. I didn't mind it, but I can see how it might have turned some people off. But I thought she was funny. Like I think that's the thing. If the character is funny, I can usually get with it, very Devil Wears
Yeah.
Prada. Like that movie is funny, so you can kind of you have a different perspective than if this was a drama or something with a horrible boss. I think that's a little harder for me to, get behind. And I think we get glimpses of her humanity throughout the movie. I wish we could have gotten more, but like when she's talking about her um, husband at the end,
Yeah. Eric's
and we have
dad.
that moment,
Yeah.
and when she's talking about, and even in that scene where she's meeting with Jenna, and she's talking about how Jenna got every job before her, and I think we've all been in that place, right? Where you have that person who you might feel a little competitive with, or who it seems like everything comes easy to them. Meanwhile, you're struggling, and I think that those glimpses of her like humanity are really helpful throughout the movie to make it less of a caricature.
One thing that I got that they never touched on, but them both being kind of in this fashion world, I think especially when it comes to women of color, there's that sense of like there can only be one. And it feels like Jenna was always the one that got it. So did y'all like what do you think about that? Do you think that that kind of maybe behind the scenes was kind of the motivation behind the beef that they had? Does that
I
make
think
sense?
That
so. I
makes
think
sense.
so.
Yes.
I
And
think so,
especially
but
for like the time they would have been coming up, I think, yeah, especially, yeah.
I also thought it was interesting that then years later, she's the Gina Torres's character is the one who gives Jenna a shot again. So I think it's like, yes, there was the competition and there can only be one, but like who did Jenna go to for support in the end? She went to the
To
black woman that
Darcy.
she came up with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, random question that I just popped in my head. Did we need the scene of Jenna and the ex? Did we need that, Anne?
I don't think so. No. And I like that actor too, but no, we did not need that scene at all. I would have been great never to see him, but in that article she read in the magazine. Um,
Right.
and
Period.
then it's just, you just throw it to the Hallmark misunderstanding. And I'm
That
like,
felt like very Hallmarkish.
the fourth
Yes.
time, just stab my eyes out. Like, please don't let them, he's going to come, see them walk in the rain, get in the car, and just think, oh, they're going to go, sleep together. Not what happened at all. And that was just kind of frustrating. There were so much other things that needed more time. That did not need any time at all.
Nope.
Because she
So.
literally goes over there. She like, he just lost his mother. She agrees like, I'll drive you home or ride with you home. They get over there, he tries to shoot a shot, she shoots him down, and she leaves. And I'm like, I don't know if it added anything, but like, are those scenes, as us four who watch these all the time, is that supposed to be a moment for Eric to realize, like, I really feel something for her, and I'm realizing it because I'm seeing her with somebody else? What do you think, Jazz?
No, because even from day one when they first met, like with their chemistry, like he did not need that scene. He knew that he loved her,
Right.
even though he was trying to fight when they got caught with their mom, by his mom, like trying to stand up for himself. But like, no, I'm talking. This is grown women conversation. But he wanted, to be that man to stand up, like, no, I love her.
Yeah. What do you think, Dory? What is that scene in there for?
Beats me. Like, I have no idea why that scene is in there. I felt like this was another pacing issue I had, and another element that I felt like could be taken out, because even when they were having the conversation, I'm like looking at my watch. I'm like, can we wrap this up? Like, it wasn't even, I don't even feel like they had, like, sometimes if, say, Jenna had still been hung up on him, right? Then you would have needed that scene or something like it for her to get closure. But I never really got that she was hung up on him. Like, she was upset that she had invested 10 years of that relationship and had nothing to show for it. Sure, she felt weird with the magazine article, but I never got the sense that she was still hung up on this man.
No.
So she didn't need the closure. Therefore, why do we need this scene? And what did it accomplish? It didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to introduce us to a character that's went through a breakup, don't bring the ex back into the movie. Like, we don't need to see that, especially like you said, if they're not still tripping on, they're not tripping. Like, it is what it is. This guy can walk past me right now and I'm going to keep walking, like, I don't think we need to bring them in the movie. Like, we got to stop doing that, because it just kind of felt like a waste of time. If anything, it's like he maybe still feels some type of way about her, but it could also very much be like he knows she's out in these streets with some young guy. And as an older man, maybe that makes him feel some type of way. But we're not spending enough time to really like figure all of that out. It's just like this scene that felt thrown in there for Eric to see her walk off with her ex that does really nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, mind you, he only dropped off that basket saying, "Oh, I heard you back in town." Sir, did you not break up with her and drag her name through New York streets and through the blogs and stuff, that she can out her mama house for over a year, be in her bed looking all crusty and stuff?
Not crusty.
Not crusty.
Okay, wait, I have a question. Did anyone else think at the beginning of the movie, like when they meet each other, did anyone else think for like 3 seconds, like, is this a dream? Is she imagining this? Because I really thought for like 3 seconds, I'm like, there's no way this is actually happening. This must be in her head. Because it was just like intense. I was like, you just met this person and you're like saying all these amazing, sweet things. And like, I was just like, oh no, this is really happening. After like 10 seconds, I'm like, oh, I guess this is happening. So
I thought they were up in the air with the shrooms, and they were just like saying these things.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
She was asleep, or I don't know. I just was like, I can't believe like this is like actually like this is the real meet cute. She's not like imagining him just because he's so beautiful. She's like thinking these things are happening or wishing or whatever. But
I can see why you felt that. I can see why you felt that, because even the meet cute, this is another pacing thing. The meet cute felt rushed. I was like, can we get some more of them flirting? Can we get a vibe going? Like, it just went from 0 to 60.
100.
Yeah, and I was like, what is going? It really threw me off. Like, we didn't even get the establishing of like, maybe they caught each other's eye when she walked into the party. And then like we didn't have any of that. Like, there's zero buildup, like
that's why I thought it was a dream.
Right. He's like, do you want to sit down? And literally 4 seconds later they're making out, and it's like, what just happened?
Like, I thought we were getting a Cinderella moment because he was like, "Wait, like, I have to leave. Like, where are you going? What's your name? Your first name, your last name, like your phone number, your IG,
Girl,
this face."
no.
I'm like,
She
"What
said
am I watching right now?"
she told her homegirls, "I slipped making out with a fetus." And I was like, "Oh my god, oh my god." I'm trying not to laugh too hard because y'all know I've had this cough, but I was like, "That's not what she just said." Oh my gosh. So, okay, I have to this is tough, but I'm going to confess it here and y'all don't come for me. It is what it is. Like I was
Okay.
talking to my husband about it and I was like, Gabrielle Union as a person, like I would love to hang out with her. She just seems like so dope and so cool. But she is not my favorite actress. Like I've not really watched a movie of hers and been like, dang, she just killed that role. I haven't had that yet. And I'm really hoping I do because I want to love her so much more. But like acting wise, who nailed it for you in this movie?
Mhm. Ooh, Gina Torres. She had those scenes, but she came and she ate and
She
left no
did.
crumbs.
I
Like,
really
That
think she
scene
was
at
it.
the end
the
with
couch with them, like, boy, you better shut up. Like, your mama said, shut up. This is grown woman's conversation. I was like, oh, baby. Yeah. Yeah. She needed like an Oscar for that scene. When they both got caught, I was like, damn.
I mean, Aisha Hines didn't have very many
No.
speaking roles. She
But she
played
was
her
down to earth.
homegirl Billy. I think she's a great. I hope they put her in more stuff. But yeah, for me it was Gina Torres, and she didn't have that much going on either. I mean, and Keith Powers, of course, I think he did.
Ooh.
He could just stand there and be quiet, and we'd be
He
like, "Yep,
wasn't
you
blind,
did great."
whatever.
Dory, who was the standout for you?
I think Gina Torres was the standout for me, but I also really liked Janet Hubert's couple moments, like at the beginning when she kicks her out the house. That made me
Yeah, that
laugh.
was funny.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I liked all of their friends. I liked his friends and her friends, and I wish we could have seen more of them. I thought that I could have used more of the supporting cast for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Anne?
I'm just so glad this movie made me remember how much I like Keith Powers. So I just have to say him because he's just, I don't know. I thought he did a great job. And yeah, they need to put him in everything like yesterday. So I hope they will do that. Cause I saw him like on a freeform show like 7 years ago. And then I feel like I haven't really seen him do that much since, at least that I've watched.
He done
And then
took
I was
some
like,
time
oh
and
my
grew
God.
up and into himself, Anne.
And then yeah, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I remember he was so good on that show, and I'm glad he's like, getting this opportunity, with Gabrielle. So yeah, I hope he'll do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. The first time I've seen Keith Powers was watching the New Edition miniseries. He played Ronnie, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, I think I'm just wanting Gabrielle to have that big role that she just can kill it in. And I mean, she did all right in this. To me it was Gina Torres, and I could probably count on one hand how many scenes we actually got her in. But even her presence, I mean, she nailed it. You felt how serious she was, that even when she wasn't on the screen, I was like, girl, you gonna piss Darcy off, okay?
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
Of her Gabrielle's career, like I loved her. I love her work. I'm mostly saying like her '90s, early 2000 catalog, especially with like the brothers, Dolores from Eva, any 1990 movie with two could play that game, like anything in that nature. You watch how she started in her career, what character she played up to she got to now. You kind of see where she's at in that space. I'm not sure if she wants to go into serious, drama pieces yet or anything like that, because I'm not her. But I know for me, I'm definitely see her in the 90s, early 2000s. That's in my collection of her in her like peak of her career.
And see, this is okay. So this is perfect because this is one of the conversation that my husband and I had is like, unfortunately, I feel like some of our Black actresses, they kind of end up staying in a lane. Like Gabrielle Union is like, when I think of Black romantic comedies, she's like the first or one of the first that comes to mind, like, and that's fine. Like you do what you're great at, right? But like, I also question like, you hear so much about the struggle that Black actors have for getting roles, and it's like, are people not reaching out to her for other stuff? Does she not want to do other things? Like I would love to see her do more to like show how good of an actor that she is. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah,
I think of like Jada Pinkett Smith, right? I mean, as soon as I think
Mm.
of Jada, I think of Set It Off. And I'm like, I feel like most of the roles are her in that movie. But I feel like she could do so many other things. Are there not scripts out there for her? Or is it, I know I can do this and that's what I'm going to do? I think of like Lauren London. I want to see Lauren London do more. But I feel like the roles that has been in were great for her. But it's like, I know you can do more. Why aren't we seeing you do more? I don't want that to sound negative, but do y'all get what I'm saying?
No,
Yeah.
no, we definitely agree.
So I don't know. I feel like those are our thoughts on The Perfect Find.
Okay, one more thing since we're finishing. The moment the movie lost me was when Gina Torres was talking to them in his apartment, her apartment, and then like Jenna looks to Eric and like he's not gonna say anything, and then he just doesn't say anything else.
Oh yeah, he didn't say anything. My heart broke.
Girl.
It just went down. I was like, okay, you have lost me. This man will not speak up for this woman, and then we don't even see them together again, or that he's thought about her or anything until they're at the pregnancy, and then that reaction was bad, and then it was just
He certainly had a lot to say at that diner. Not in front of his mama, but he had a lot to say at that diner.
Girl.
I feel like Darcy catching them is when it becomes a whole other movie.
It sure did. Because toes were curling.
Yeah, toes were curling, and then they get caught, and it becomes something totally different.
And I was just like, what just happened? Why did someone just drop this movie? And like, I don't know. That they lost me at that moment. It was not
for sure.
Yeah.
That diner scene to me was wild because there was no resolution. Because the next time we see them together, they're at her appointment and she's just happy he's there. And I'd be like,
and he finds out because of word on the street.
I know. I'm like, listen, I would need some resolution. I would need some apologies. I would need some commitments of what this means moving forward. Like that completely blew my mind. That he, and like, I also don't necessarily think that, I think the reaction he had at the diner was very honest. And I think she did blindside him. And I think that it was probably shocking. And he said some things, but there has to be some resolution because that was rough.
That was rough.
like they meet the next day and he's like, okay, sorry, I needed like 24 hours to process because you've been processing for however many weeks and it was just got on me, but this is blah 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 blah. It just didn't flow because you're like, what's
I know. And he was like, and it felt so out of character for him because he had always been so like sweet to her, and he
Yes.
would mess
Yes.
with her and joke with her a little bit, but he never took that tone with her before.
Right. Yeah.
And in the face of his mother, he was dead silent. So it kind of felt like it came out of left field. It's like, who is this man talking to me this way? Like, I would have had some questions.
yeah.
Definitely. But can we talk about the ending? Because I feel like I need a whole rewrite, honestly. I need a whole rewrite.
Okay, how would you rewrite the end? Everybody share how they would rewrite the end. You
Like,
go first.
honestly, scrap the whole pregnancy thing. Like, scrap that. And I feel as though what they talked about earlier in the film, how they work together and birth this like new vision of like old Hollywood films with like picture with style and everything. That could have been their baby. That could have been where they launched their own thing outside of Darcy and did their thing. That's just me. And they just showed up with their piece of partnership with their mom after, their forbidden love they're not supposed to have. And that's their baby. The end.
Yeah.
They were the perfect line. They found each other.
Do you feel like the ending, when I hear like screenwriters or whatever talk, it's kind of like you end the movie, I guess, like kind of where you started it. Do you feel like that? Like, did it feel full circle to you at the end or no?
Nah.
No,
Yeah, I
because
didn't
I
feel like
feel
that
like
to
we
me
just
either.
missed a huge chunk.
Yeah.
Well, then they introduced the baby. They introduce she's pregnant, and then we don't see her have the baby. So there's no like resolution. I mean, it just loose ends just weren't tied.
Yeah.
In my mind.
So again, I think it goes back to, I mean, a lot of people felt like the movie was rushed. Do you feel like it was rushed, or do you feel like script writing wise, it didn't work because there was like too many things introduced and you can't close the loops on certain things, or was it just not written good?
I personally think the pacing was just off because I think some things were rushed, like say the meet cute I felt was rushed. But then that scene with the ex felt too long. So I think there were moments that
And it
could
felt
have
long because
been
it was unnecessary.
exactly. Exactly. And if you're going to have it, keep it tight. Like we don't need all of this, So I just felt like like I feel like some things needed to be extended and other things needed to be trimmed up. And also, I think some things needed to not be in the story at all. I think the pacing overall was just off. I wouldn't say that it was rushed, because some things I felt were either completely unnecessary or were too long. So there were pacing problems on both ends of the spectrum in my mind.
Okay. What about you, Anne?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. This is going to sound really bad, but it kind of makes me glad that Hallmark is not the only people who mess this stuff up, because sometimes I think it's just them. But, I think that writing a really good movie with good pacing and a movie that, wraps things up well it's really a hard thing to do. So
Agree.
it kind of
Yeah.
makes me feel better that they're not the only ones who can't, get it right. But okay, sorry. What was the question again? I just forgot.
No. You were right. Like, did it feel like things came full circle for you at the end?
Yeah, I just felt we missed so much. I didn't like that the only thing that brought them back together was her telling him about the pregnancy. That just felt like too much real life for me. I didn't like that. It just kiboshed the whole rom-com part. It felt too realistic. That they like never saw each other or anything. Like he just, before that moment, and then the gap between that moment, then just bam, we're in the, room, then bam, we're at this, opening party with a 20 second, cameo from Dwayne Wade. It It was like, what? It was just like, felt like I fast forwarded something, like, and I hit the button on accident because I must have missed something
Yeah.
because it didn't make sense.
Well, a huge part of of all of that you just said that we hadn't talked about was like for Eric, he always felt like Jenna was always going to hide him. Like we can't be out, or we can only be out when it's convenient for her. Like we can be sweet and intimate and romantic behind closed doors, but I think the age gap for her, I think maybe there was a little bit of embarrassment there, like so then he's like, you want to keep me in the shadows, but now you tell me you're pregnant. Like I need some time to like register all this. And yeah, like you said, Dory, like he was very honest, and I felt that. I didn't expect it to be as like dark as it was, because he was like totally sweet and swoon worthy the entire time. But yeah, just to give some context for anybody that hasn't watched it, like he was kind of a jerk, but there was content, there was reasoning behind, because Jenna did kind of like yeah, we can do this, but nobody can know.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was pissed off, and I don't think that is necessarily, I mean, if I was Jenna, I certainly wouldn't want that reaction, but I don't think it's completely unjustified, right? Like
Yeah.
she totally blindsided him,
She really
she
did.
didn't even say like because in the message to him she was like, hey, do you want to reconnect? It wasn't even, I have to tell you something, like I'd love to tell you in person. So I can see why he reacted. It wasn't, his tone was surprising because we
Yeah.
have never seen that side of him before, but I also don't think that is unjustified, and I don't think that I mean, people react how they react when you spring something on them like this. And so I wasn't necessarily I was taken aback by the scene, but I would have felt better about it if there was a follow-up conversation.
Yes.
It's hard that was the only conversation about the pregnancy. And the next thing you know, with the two of them, we're in the hospital room. I would have loved to have a couple more conversations about this huge life event instead of just a full-on fight in a diner and then him taking video of the sonogram.
Yeah.
Like that's wild to go from one extreme to the next.
Because I think, and going back to, in the words of Dory, it's a choice, right? And so that scene, and then him just showing up and her just being happy that he's there and we're moving on, I think sends a message of like, well, girl, he can blow up on you, but if he shows up, like, it is what it is. That's you should just be happy with the fact that he showed up. And it's like, no, we need to communicate about a lot right now. I need to let you know why I'm just now reaching out to you, and you can also share with me. I would love to know why you are upset right now, what you're feeling in this moment. Like, we're bringing a child into this world, whether we stay together or not. We have to be able to communicate, so we need to start now. So yeah, I felt like the message that could show to people was not necessarily a good one. That choice wasn't necessarily a good one. We needed to see some talking.
That's right, Miko. That's right. Sorry, Miko had to jump in there because he actually walked the room with
me.
He
had thoughts. He
did. Like, y'all, he actually did lay down and watch the movie with me.
Oh, our little mascot. Does anybody have any final thoughts?
I wanted to ask a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So I really liked the one thing. So I feel bad because I feel like I complained about this movie the whole time, but there were elements that I really enjoyed. Like, I really liked the vibe of this movie. I loved the soundtrack. I loved the music
was great
so much. I thought it was so good. Everything from like SWV to Bruno Mars to like Louis Armstrong, like so good.
Yes.
And I felt like I loved the opening credits where it explains her breakup basically through headlines, like newspaper headlines.
Yeah.
And they animate it. And I thought that was so fun and clever, and I loved that. And the beginning of the movie really gave me that like throwback 90s 2000s rom-com in New York vibes, which is
Yes.
probably my favorite type of movie.
It
And
was
like
lots
a
of
Louis
pink.
Yes, and like Louis Armstrong is playing over these opening credits and singing a love song. Like it just, you're immediately dropped into like rom-com land, and
You
I
are.
loved that. I love the old Hollywood vibe too.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to ask is, did any of you know about Nina Mae McKinney? Because I did not. And
I was trying to Google her.
Oh, me either.
I
I was trying to Google it.
actually majored in film in college and studied film history, film criticism, and I had never heard of Nina Mae McKinney. So
See there? Yeah.
had anyone heard of her before this movie?
No.
I hadn't. No.
And she was
I liked
gorgeous.
that they introduced her to us. I really appreciated that, and I liked when they showed the old Greta Garbo scene, and just there were so many.
And
I love that he
incorporated it into the movie. Like it
Yes.
had a moment. Yeah.
Yes, I loved that, and I loved when I loved that he shot on the old film camera. Like I really loved the vibe of this movie. Like it made
Remy
me
Ma
want
looked
to
like Dorothy
move.
Dandridge. She
Yes,
looked
it
like
was
her.
beautiful. And I just loved that, like, this movie made me want to move to New York and fall in love, you know? And
Yes.
so I really did love the vibe, and I loved a lot of these little touches and details I thought were so wonderful.
And that's why I'm going to piggyback off of Dory, because that what I love so much about it was like, okay, they're introducing like something we did not know or was not taught in school, or maybe in some certain film schools, and then having the essence of being in Brooklyn area, in Harlem area, and going back in time with the clothing, with this old camera. Like I feel like I was transferred back into the Renaissance era of Harlem Renaissance, getting this from the 2023 perspective, and bring it out of the city. And that's why I wanted, instead of being like an actual baby they were having, that they birthed this project as their baby, and how they fell in love doing it at the same time. That's all I wanted.
Well, I Googled her. I Googled our girl Nina. So
Oh, yeah.
she was, her original name was Nanny Mame McKinney. And she was born June 12th, 1912. So she very recently celebrated a birthday. And she passed away May 3rd, 1967. And she was dubbed the Black Garbo in Europe because of her striking beauty. And she was one of the first African American film stars in the United States, and one of the first African Americans to appear on British television. And she is gorgeous. So yeah, shout out to Miss Nina. But yeah, I had never heard of her. I mean, when you think of old Hollywood, you hear like Dorothy Dandridge, right? You hear of Lena Horne, like you don't hear of very many. So I love that they spotlighted her.
Yeah.
Well, Dory, where can everyone keep up with you online?
You can find me at Dory Benford on Instagram and at All the Feels Pod on Twitter. You can also find me at Dory Benford on Twitter, but I might deactivate my personal account for the summer. I might take a little social media hiatus.
I think we all need to take a social media hiatus.
Yeah.
Look,
yeah.
You can't log on to Twitter without getting upset. So
I know. I mean, after this week, that's how I felt. I was like, I think I'm going to take a little hiatus this summer, but I will still be on All the Feels Twitter, checking messages, all of that good stuff.
Yes. What about you, Anne?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at awscott21.
And Jazzy?
You can find me, parentheses Miko, because he's on the socials too.
Oh my gosh.
You can find us at both on Instagram and Twitter at Shreem16, SHREEM16.
And I am at Bree unabashedly on the socials, the Twitter, the IG, occasionally the TikTok. But yeah, I might have to stay off of those for a little while because, we live in America. It is what it is. We don't have to explain. So don't forget to follow us on social media at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your 5-star ratings and reviews. I will say that again. Please leave your 5-star ratings and reviews. You guys support podcasters. It's the easiest, cheapest, quickest way to support us. It's just go leave a review. It helps people find the podcast. If you are listening on YouTube, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out our Patreon group for monthly watch-alongs with stars and our merch store for all your Hallmarkies inspired designs. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you watched this film, hit us up. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. Or just, let us know a movie that you've enjoyed so far in 2023. We would love to hear. And we'll chat with you in our next Mahogany's cast recap. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.